No one warns you about this part of aging, until it's too late. They tell you to enjoy your golden years. They promise more rest, less stress, and all the time in the world. But what they don't tell you, what almost no one dares to say, is that aging past 80 often feels more like letting go than living freely. No one warns you about the quiet mornings that feel too long. The empty chair across the table. The sudden fear of falling while doing something as simple as walking to the bathroom. They don't talk about how friends slowly disappear, how your children are busy with their own lives, and how even the mirror stops reflecting the person you remember. This video isn't meant to scare you. It's here to tell the truth, your truth. Because after 80, aging isn't just about birthdays, it's about holding on to dignity, purpose, and strength in a world that rarely sees what you're still carrying. Aging isn't what we were told, it's harder, quieter, and more emotional than you think. They told us aging would come with wisdom, maybe some gray hair, a few more doctor visits, and a slower pace of life. But what they didn't prepare us for was the quiet ache that comes with outliving friends, losing strength in our hands, or forgetting the name of someone we once loved deeply. This video isn't meant to frighten you. It's not about pessimism. It's about honesty, the kind that's often missing from conversations around aging. Because if you're over 80, or you care deeply for someone who is, you know the truth already. You felt it in your bones, in the silence of your home, and in the long pauses when no one calls. We're here to name what's often left unspoken. The real experiences, the invisible shifts, the emotional and physical weight that aging brings, not to complain but to connect, to empower, and to prepare. You are not alone. And this stage of life, while difficult, still holds meaning, dignity, and strength, if we face it with open eyes and open hearts. Truth number 1, the loneliness that arrives without warning. You don't realize how much you'll miss familiar voices, until they're gone. No one tells you how quiet life becomes after 80, not just the quiet in the room but the quiet in your phone. The silence where laughter used to live. The stillness where friendship once bloomed. It doesn't happen all at once. At first it's a friend who stops calling. Then a neighbor who moves away. A sister who passes quietly in her sleep. Slowly your circle begins to shrink. Not because you've changed but because life has moved on without asking your permission. Your children still love you, but they're overwhelmed with their own lives. Grandkids grow fast and visits become shorter. The phone calls stretch further apart. And sometimes the only time you hear your name spoken aloud is at a doctor's office. You begin to wonder, if I didn't show up today, would anyone notice? That thought doesn't come from drama, it comes from truth. Because loneliness after 80 isn't about being alone, it's about being forgotten. You become the keeper of memories no one asks about. The witness to a life few remember. And that weight, of being the last one still here, can feel heavier than anyone realizes. But naming it gives it power. And recognizing it helps us make choices. You don't need a dozen people checking in. Sometimes one good soul who sees you, really sees you, is enough to bring life back into your eyes. You're still here. And your voice still matters. Truth number 2, the body's quiet betrayal. One day you're fine, the next day everything hurts. No one prepares you for how unpredictable your own body becomes after 80. It's not a steady decline. It's a roller coaster that no one asked to ride. One morning you wake up feeling strong enough to take a walk, cook breakfast, maybe even sweep the porch. And then the very next day your knees won't bend right. Your back tightens up just from standing too long. Even holding a coffee cup feels heavier than it used to. The hardest part isn't the pain, it's the surprise. You go to bed thinking, tomorrow will be better, but you wake up feeling 10 years older. That kind of inconsistency isn't just physical, it's emotional. It chips away at your confidence. You start second-guessing every plan. Will I feel good enough to go out? Should I cancel now? This constant negotiation with your own body wears you down, slowly, silently. And most people around you won't notice because on the outside you might still smile, still sit upright, still look okay. But inside, you're carrying a quiet grief, mourning the version of you who could once move through the world without having to think so hard about every step. And still, you get up. You adjust. You try again. That strength no one talks about. That's what resilience looks like after 80, not perfection but persistence. Truth number 3, feeling forgotten even when surrounded. You're still here but the world has moved on. There's a unique kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, but from being overlooked. You sit at the dinner table with your family. They're talking, laughing, scrolling through phones. You're right there, part of the moment, and yet somehow not really in it. No one asks what you think anymore. No one remembers how much you once led, taught, held together. At doctor appointments they speak around you, To your daughter, your son, the nurse, as if your thoughts no longer matter. And in your community, people nod politely, but they don't really see you. They see your gray hair, your cane, your quiet smile, but not the history in your heart. The truth is, many seniors past 80 start to feel like ghosts in their own lives. You're still here, but the world, it seems to have moved on. And maybe the most painful part? Watching the version of yourself you once were, strong, needed, respected, slowly fade in the memories of others. It's like the story you've lived is being shelved before the final chapter is even done. But hear this, your value didn't retire when your job did. Your voice didn't lose meaning when you slowed down. You're not less, you're simply in a quieter season that still matters. Because behind every wrinkle is a story. Behind every pause, a lifetime of wisdom. You may feel invisible, but your presence still carries weight. Truth number 4, grieving over and over, but still waking up. You outlive people you thought you'd grow old with. No one tells you that one of the hardest parts of growing old is being the one who remains. You've said goodbye so many times, to a spouse who shared your everyday, to siblings who knew your childhood stories, to friends whose laughter used to fill your weekends. At first, each loss feels like a sharp cut. But over time, the grief becomes quieter, not because it goes away but because it becomes familiar. And that's its own kind of pain, the dull, steady ache of losing people over and over again. There's a kind of silence that settles in your home when you're the last one left with the memories. You reach for the second coffee cup out of habit. You hear a song that once meant something to both of you, and now it only echoes for one. And then there's the guilt. The question that lingers in the early morning hours. Why am I still here, when they're not? It's called survivor's guilt. And even though you didn't choose this, even though you did nothing wrong, it weighs on your chest. Because being the last one with the stories can feel like being the last page in a book that no one else is reading anymore. But still, you wake up. You open the curtains. You make your tea. You carry their memory in the way you speak, the way you smile, the way you keep going. Because love doesn't die when someone's gone. It lingers in your hands, in your voice, in the courage it takes to face another day alone. You are not just surviving. You are remembering. And in doing so, you're keeping something precious alive. Truth number 5, your home doesn't feel safe anymore. The house feels bigger and your steps feel smaller. There was a time when this house was your sanctuary. You knew every corner by heart, where the sun touched in the morning, where the children used to leave their shoes, where your partner would hum a tune while making tea. But now, it feels different. The hallway feels longer. The staircase looks steeper. And the bathroom, once just a room, now feels like a slippery trap. You find yourself holding onto walls, moving slower, double-checking every step, every lock, every light switch. And it's not just physical, it's emotional. Because when your legs aren't as steady and your balance falters, the place that once gave you peace begins to whisper fear. You start to avoid certain rooms. You think twice before getting up at night. You wonder, what if I fall and no one's here? That quiet anxiety wraps around your day like a shadow. Not because you're weak, but because you're aware. Aware that one small slip could mean a hospital or worse, leaving the home you built, forever. And perhaps the hardest part? This fear grows in the very place that holds your warmest memories. The living room where you danced. The kitchen where birthdays were baked into cakes. The bed where your love once laid beside you. You're not alone in feeling this. Many seniors begin to feel trapped in their own homes, not because they want to leave but because they're afraid they might have to. But acknowledging that fear? That's the first brave step toward reclaiming your space. Because with the right support, grab bars, better lighting, a safety plan, even an aging home can become a safe one again. You deserve to feel secure in the place that holds your life story. And it's okay to say, this doesn't feel safe anymore, but I want it to. Truth number 6, the fear of being a burden. You start hiding your struggles, so no one worries. You've spent your whole life being strong, providing, supporting, protecting. So when age begins to chip away at your strength, when getting dressed takes twice as long, or when walking across a room feels like climbing a hill, your first instinct isn't to ask for help. It's to say, I'm fine, even when you're not. Because deep down, a quiet fear settles in. I don't want to be a burden. You don't want your children worrying. You don't want them rearranging their lives because of you. You don't want to be the problem in the family group chat. So you smile when your back aches. You nod when you didn't hear. You say you ate even if you didn't. And you manage your own pain, in silence. But here's the truth that no one says out loud. Suffering alone doesn't protect your loved ones. It just leaves you feeling more alone. That guilt, the kind that comes from needing help, is a cruel trick of aging. Because accepting support isn't weakness. It's courage. It's honesty. It's love. And if your loved ones knew you were hiding your struggle just to protect their peace, they'd be heartbroken. So maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to say, I could use a little help. Not every time. Not always. Just when it matters. Because you're not a burden. You're a human being who's done so much for others. And now it's okay to let others do a little for you. That's not guilt. That's grace. Truth number 7. The question no one answers. Do I still matter? You've lived a full life. But sometimes you feel invisible. You raised a family. You worked long days and longer nights. You gave, you sacrificed, you showed up. For everyone. But now at 80, 85, or even 90, a quiet question rises in the stillness. Do I still matter? It's not something you say out loud. But you feel it in the silence of long afternoons. In the way conversations move on without you. In the glance that skips past you in a waiting room. It's the ache of no longer being needed. Not as the family backbone, not as the decision maker, not even as the one who's asked for advice. You love your children and grandchildren more than life itself. But sometimes when they forget to call, or rush through visits, you wonder if your presence is more of a formality than a joy. And no one talks about this part. This slow fading of identity. Not your name or your face, but your sense of place in the world. You're not looking for praise. You're not asking to be put on a pedestal. You just want to feel seen, heard, valued. Not for who you used to be, but for who you are now. Because even in your 80s, you still have stories to tell, wisdom to share, love to give. And deep inside you're still asking, is anyone listening? Here's the truth, you do matter. And your life still carries weight, even if the world is too distracted to notice sometimes. So maybe today you remind someone else they matter too. You write that card. You share that memory. You offer that smile. And in doing that you remind yourself, I'm still here. I'm still living. I still matter. What do you remember? Your strength is still here. You're not broken, you're evolving. You may feel slower. You may forget things. You may ache in places that never used to hurt. But that doesn't mean you're weak. It means your body and your life are changing. And change doesn't make you less. It makes you wise enough to adapt. This stage of life isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about naming the pain, so it doesn't define you in silence. It's about keeping small routines. The morning tea, the evening walk, the note you write to a friend. Because those little acts remind your soul that it's still here, still needed, still thriving in its own way. And it's about reaching out even just once. Not because you're dependent, but because human connection keeps the heart alive. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. And you are certainly not finished. Your story still matters. And you're the only one who can keep telling it, in your voice, on your terms. So breathe. Lift your head. And carry this truth with you. You're not broken. You're evolving. And your strength is still here. You deserve to be seen, heard, and valued at every age. Getting older is not weakness. It's a badge of endurance. But no one should carry it alone. You've lived through storms. You've loved deeply, lost greatly. And still, you rise each day, even when your body feels heavier and the world feels quieter. This stage of life is not an ending. It's a slower rhythm, yes, but it still holds music, meaning, and moments that matter. You deserve to be seen, not as fragile but as seasoned. You deserve to be heard, not as a burden but as a voice of lived truth. You deserve to be valued, not just for your past but for your presence. Because aging isn't giving up. It's holding on, with grace. Which of these 7 truths spoke to you the most? Comment below with your number. Was it the loneliness? The shrinking circle? Or that quiet question, do I still matter? And if you believe that seniors deserve more honest conversations like this, subscribe to our channel. We're not just sharing facts, we're sharing you. Your truth, your journey, your voice. Because even after 80, you're still here. And that matters more than you know.